Well, now here we have different stages of growth in forests. Over here we have, in my woods here, the ash and so on that I've been harvesting. The ash borer has been killing a lot of the ash trees. They're gonna get wiped out. So I figured I'd use them for, my own heating my house purposes and so on. But what I'm doing is, there's a big cherry tree right there, some other cherry trees. I'm harvesting all the ash trees right around the cherry trees, around the maples. And the cherry, the maples, the oaks, I've been planting oaks in here and so on. I'll never see the oaks get mature. It takes a long time. But there's different stages of growth. Over here, you have the brush and so on. That's where the deer hang out, and that's where the deer feed, with the cornfields and the brush. When the snow's deep and they got to get to something, they go to the brush areas and eat the buds and so on, like I've showed you before in other videos. And then the next stage of forest, or the first stage of actual forest after the brush, are those aspen trees. You got cottonwood, aspen, and they grow really fast. And they're a softwood, and they're very, you can use those to make cottonwood and aspen are good for making a bow drill for starting heat and so on. I've used them before for that. But then you get in, of course, to the next stage, the ash. And then I'm not going to film it right here. There's across the street, there's a mature forest there with a large, oak trees. There's actually locusts. I actually have walnut trees. I leave them for the squirrels and so on, and leave the acorns for that. And here too, like in the brush area, there's all sorts of rabbit droppings there. The rabbits thrive in these areas and so on. Woodchucks thrive in these areas. They find lots of protection to hide from the fox. There's so many. It used to be people did a lot of trapping, and now there's very little trapping going on today, not compared to what it used to be. And so it doesn't keep the rabbit, there's too many predators, and there's not enough predator control to keep the predators down, and they're eating too many rabbits and so on, and too many grouse, too many predators. And we need to have more predator control. But this is one of the few places, because of the habitat, where there's rabbits. When I was growing up hunting years ago, there's a lot of trapping going on, and there was plenty of pheasants, plenty of rabbits to hunt. There was tons of stuff to hunt. But it isn't that way now, because there's too many predators. Kids that didn't have paper routes used to go and trap for the fox and for the raccoons and so on. Raccoons raid the bird nest. The pheasants, now it's pheasants in New York State, they used to be everywhere, and now you got so many hawks and so on, you can't hunt them. And they're just pretty much, it's very rare to have a good pheasant area now. And they used to just grow naturally. Now they have to be grown in some place, some nursery, and then let go, or else there wouldn't be any pheasants left in New York State. Of course, they're not indigenous to this area, but it is nice to have something like that to hunt. Of course, we have the ruffed grouse, we have the turkey that come here naturally, but the predators are taking a toll on the turkeys and on the ruffed grouse. I know I've seen goshawks flying through the woods chasing after grouse, and just so many raccoons and so on. We didn't have rabies before, now we got rabies. I remember before, rabies, which is pretty much, and I've seen skunks with rabies. I shot skunks with rabies, raccoons with rabies. I've seen it a lot, because there's just too many of them. The diseases are spreading and so on. So not only forest management, but predator management. But when you manage the forest like this, and eventually it gets to the stage of mature maples and so on, you thin the trees out so sunlight goes in, so you have the underbrush here, like I am here. And then the animals come, like the rabbits and so on, and the deer, to eat when the snow is deep and they can't reach the grass. We used to have, in this area, mastodons, those huge elephants who would take the trees down. and do forest management. Of course, they became extinct, and so on, and to take the forest down. I know what you're saying, you know, that was during the Ice Age, but they found woolly mammoths with deciduous leaves in their stomachs. So the stuff about them living near glaciers and the Ice Age wiped them out, I don't believe it. I think human being over hunting, they didn't have conservation back then, so over hunting destroyed the woolly mammoth and the mastodon and so on. As hunters got more, they just go for the big animal to take care of the, you know, then when the elephants, you know, the mastodons and the woolly mammoths were wiped out, then they go for other animals, smaller animals, you know, the buffalo and so on. But here we have just an example of forest management. We don't have the mastodons going through the woods now. We have us, human beings, to do the forest management. And if we do it right, it'll be the most beneficial for the wildlife. And a mature forest, unless you're a squirrel, unless there's a lot of beech in there, it's not going to do animals much good. Red squirrels will thrive in it, but what good is 6 million acres in the Adirondacks if most of it is mature forest that can't support deer? Very small deer population. There's a large moose population there. It's getting bigger. Fortunately, we had a storm a few years ago in 1995 that wiped out 1 million acres of forest, and it was great. It knocked the forest down, stuff grew up, and then you had the snowshoe hare come in, and you know, then you had more predators come in, and it just, you know, more deer, and it helped the moose population and so on. Moose, of course, most of the time stay in the swamps and so on. But just a lesson on it. Forests like this that are opened up and managed are the best for wildlife. And the Adirondacks, unfortunately, are closed to lumbering, and the only place you find the wildlife in the Adirondacks are where the swamps are, where the beaver knock down the trees, or in private land where it's forested. That's where the large deer populations are. That's where the turkey populations are. That's where the large moose population is. And that's where the bears are. That's just the truth.